BMS companies should operate like a franchise. The company should control the quality of the projects. The company should determine the brand of the business. The employees, the staff, they should not determine the brand of the company, which they do, and that's why I wanted to record this video. If you look at companies like Apple, for example, you got like an iPhone or a watch or whatever it is. I'm actually Android, so I'm half making this up. But, the people that are working in the factories, putting together the phones, they don't determine the brand of the company. They don't influence the success of the company. The company controls the brand and the quality and, how this company is perceived by the market. Now, in our industry, we're not at all like that. There's a saying like people often ask me like, Bryce, who's the best BMS company? And the answer is that, unfortunately, obviously some companies are slightly better or slightly worse, but generally all BMS companies are the same. They're generally the same. It really depends on who's assigned to your project. If you have a good engineer and a good project manager, you're going to have a good outcome. But the very next project with the same company, you could have, a junior engineer or a junior project manager who's going through a learning curve, and you don't get a good outcome, and then the job is not successful. And I see this all the time because I'm doing a lot of BMS upgrades around Australia and all different states all the time. I'm dealing with different companies all the time. The same company in this state as in that state, two completely different outcomes. So this discussion here is this idea of BMS companies operating like a franchise, like McDonald's. You go into McDonald's. I don't actually eat McDonald's, but you go to McDonald's in any country in the world, it's kind of the same. It looks kind of the same. The food kind of like tastes the same. They ask you the same questions. Do you want fries with that? Do you want to upgrade to a large? So if you do like eating McDonald's and you're anywhere in the world, you can sort of have the same experience when you go there, kind of. If every time you went to a different McDonald's in a different country or a different state, or different town, and the experience was different, the brand would not be that successful. The brand is successful because you have the exact same experience wherever you go. That person that when they get a job and at the front desk, I'm assuming they get a little manual, and this is the manual for the front desk person. This is the manual for the person that's making the food. The front desk person, the manual says, when a customer walks up to you, smile and say this. Then they say this, then you say that, and you finish off and say this, thank you very much, whatever, have a nice day. There's a process that they follow, and it controls the quality. Now, if you watched that video a couple of videos ago when I was sort of touching on my process that I use for BMS upgrades, how I control my process, I don't think BMS companies do that. They don't have a detailed process that explains exactly how you should do things to control the quality. It's kind of like if I had to join a BMS company now, I would expect, say I join them as a project manager, I would expect to be given the project management manual, and I read through and it tells me, at our company, this is how we do things and this is how you do it. This is the steps you follow, and if you follow our process, we have good success with our project. That's not what happens. So if I join your company, there's not a really, people might say they do have processes, but it's not deep. It's either the processes either aren't very detailed or they're not managed. So some companies might have processes that were written up 10 years ago, but no one's policing the process. There isn't someone in the company that is making sure that each first person is following the process. So either you don't have a process or you do have one, it's not being managed or policed. That's what I think. If I join your company, I should be given the manual. But what usually happens is a new starter joins a company and they just do the job to whatever their current experience level is. It's super bad and it's not consistent. And I've seen this before many, many times with BMS companies, since 2014 when I was doing consulting work. I'll give you an example. There was this young guy called Ryan. He worked for a BMS company. He was like a young guy, like very smart guy, highly motivated, excellent work ethic, attitude. But obviously he was young, he was new to the industry. And at that time, when I first started my own business, I actually first did freelancing for a couple of years. Before I was doing like big projects, I was freelancing a lot to other consultancies. And there was an independent commissioning agent that I used to freelance to. And I used to do all the witnessing on all their projects. I think I witnessed like 50 projects, 50, in about 3 years. It's like every month. Bryce just go there and sign that job, witness that job off. So I first met Ryan, his first job, great guy, but he was learning, he was finding his way, and he was making mistakes, like you expect, like we all do. And I remember watching him through like 3 or 4 projects over like 3 years, and he was getting better and better every project. He was like learning his lessons, and he was like fixing things up. And I sort of sometimes feel that I was a part of his learning curve, maybe because I spent a lot of time with him witnessing. I said, like, don't do it like that, do it like this. And I'd write up defects. He would fix things. And the next job I'd see that he would have not do that again. It was great. So he's getting better and better and better and better and better. And I remember that the one day this company won a job, and it's like, okay, where's Ryan? There's a different person in there. And it's a new person, new starter, and another young guy, real smart guy, hard worker, good work attitude. And I'm like, I remember thinking to myself, serious. I was sitting there on a construction site, because these were all construction projects, like 50 of them. I was thinking to myself, are we going to go through this again? Yep. He made the same mistakes. I wrote up the same defects. He turned into a great engineer. It shouldn't be like that. The employee and the staff should not determine the brand of a BMS company. The company should control the brand of their company. Like, if I owned a company, I do own a company, but only one person works there, and some freelancers. If I owned a company, Bryce, I owned a BMS company, I would not allow my profits and how fast I pay my mortgage off to be determined by my staff. It's fuck no ways I'm doing that. I'm going to control that process. In that few videos before, you sort of just saw my process a little bit. I touched on my process. I'll just pause for a second. I do appreciate it's very easy for me as one person to manage my consulting process, the process that I follow, because I'm only one person. It's very easy for me to do that. If I show you my estimating sheet for when I do 3 proposals, when I'm putting in my hours to do all the tasks for phase 1, phase 2, phase of BMS project when I'm the consultant, in the specification phase, I have an 8-hour allowance called ingenuity. It's in my thing. I have 8 hours in there. And that 8 hours, I've got an allowance that every single project I do, I improve my process. So there was a phase when I was going through, and I was like, in the beginning, a long time ago, every job I was trying to improve my specification better, and it got to a point where it was good enough. And then I started spending more time improving the process that I follow. Then I spent time improving my fee proposals, or whatever, my reporting, my reports, or whatever it was, right? So every single job that I do, I'm not joking, every single job I do, I specifically work on how do I improve my product for this project. And it's easy to do that because I'm one person. I know for a lot of you, that the bigger the company, the harder it is to maintain a process, because there's just too many moving parts, a lot of people, it's hard to do it, right? So I'm just acknowledging that as I sit here and preach to you about having a process and controlling quality, I know it's difficult for large companies. So recently from that other video, when I showed you those graphics that I drew out, so I went through a phase. There was like 1 or 2 jobs where I was using all that ingenuity money, that allowance, to hand draw out a lot of those graphics. I did that. There was a time before that when I had those templates, the spreadsheet that I provide with my specification pack. I spent time producing those templates. So every single job, I'm getting better and better and better every single job. I'm getting better every single job, 100%. When I spoke to you about, locking in 2 years worth of meetings up front, right? I only started doing that about 2 jobs ago. That's a newish thing. So there was this other job, there was this project 2 jobs ago, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to make my process better? How am I going to make my product that people buy better? How am I going to do that this job? And I was like, okay, I'm wasting time arranging meetings, and I don't like my customer arranging a meeting when I want to do my deep work. I want to control it. So I did that. So now moving forward in my process, in my project setup tab, set up all the meetings, I do that. Right, so a question to you, if you're a project manager or an engineer, is your company getting better every single project that they do? No, that's not happening, because I know it's not happening because I'm working with you guys, right? So I know what's happening here. We should be getting better every single project. I'll give you a quick example. When I came to Australia, I was working as a project manager, and I was new to that job actually. I never wanted to be a project manager. I liked doing design, but I couldn't get a sponsorship into Australia in a technical role, because a lot of companies won't sponsor people from overseas in technical roles, but they will sponsor management type roles. So I had to be a project manager. So I came to Australia in 2010 as a project manager, didn't know what I was doing. So I had a big learning curve to go through. But the branch manager at this company he was very good at like micromanaging the process. And he had a process where every month, so we had a financial forecast. So I was doing like 6 projects. I had to have financial forecasts for all 6 projects. What am I going to invoice this month, next, for like the whole year, the whole project? There's my forecast. And then he would take all the project managers' forecasts and then wrap them up into the branch's forecast, which he was forecasting to Asia Pacific, who would wrap theirs up forecasting to the US. So he had a process that he used to manage where we used to update our forecasts, and then he would sort of check through them, blah, blah, blah. And then we would invoice. I remember the one time I didn't invoice enough money against my forecast. I didn't invoice enough. I'd forecast that I was going to invoice like, say, $200,000, and I invoiced like $150,000. And it would have been something like, maybe my engineers weren't working on the job enough and booking time to timesheet. Maybe there's a delay somewhere. Maybe I ordered materials too late and they came in and the cost hit my job. I never made the forecast. And he calls me in there. He's like, Bryce, what happened? You didn't hit your forecast. And he said to me like, you've missed your forecast and you have made me miss my forecast up the line. I was like, fuck, I was on a work permit. Oh God. So, I went back from there and I developed my own method for controlling the forecast. And I used to, this is slightly off topic, but for example, one of the things I used to do, for example, was at the first of the month, I'd order all my materials. If I ordered my materials the first of the month, their cost would hit my job by the end of the month and it would achieve the forecast. And I used to call up my installer and say, you need to send me your invoice on like the 15th of each month so I can check your invoice and get it into my system, and that like $100,000 you're going to invoice me would hit my job on time. So I developed a process where I'm running my project, but I'm also very specifically doing certain things at certain times that costs would hit my job and I'd hit my forecast, and I would never ever fail my boss in him failing his forecast to his boss. And I'd be checking like I'd process, it says like, every Friday, check the timesheets. I'd log into the system and I could see, hey, these engineers are not working on my job. They're not booking time to my job. That's a bad thing. I'd go over this, hey guys, why aren't you booking time to my job? Oh, I've got this job to do here. I'm like, man, I need that money to hit my job for the forecast, right? What I'm saying to you is there was a process that my boss had to control that all of us were forecasting properly, and it was helping him forecast his money. I'm just saying, like, it's this idea of a BMS company should operate like a franchise. Every single job you do should have the exact same quality. When a new starter joins your company, they must get the manual that tells how to do that job. Commissioning technicians, service technicians, BMS account managers, salespeople, project managers, design engineers, everybody, there should be a manual that describes how they do that job and how you maintain the quality of it. We don't do that. It is ridiculous that we allow individual people, the staff members, to fuck up projects, and it messes up the brand of the business. Like, it's ridiculous. The business should control the brand of their company, the success of the company, not the staff. The staff should be following a process. So yeah, kind of rambling on a bit here, but I'm saying that BMS companies, you should develop a process and police the process. You would think that the engineering manager is a person that should control the process, the technical quality, the technical. But like I've looked at this before. I'll phone up an engineering manager and say, hey, what are you doing when I'm thinking about this sort of stuff, right? And they're not controlling the quality of the design, and they're not like doing quality assurance on other designs. They are doing other things. Someone resigned last week, trying to put together a job advert to replace that person, dealing with like, this person doesn't like this person, this customer doesn't like that person, this person doesn't like that customer, just like dramas of people. And they're doing 2 or 3 projects because someone resigned, there's no one else to cover those jobs. But like, we don't have people in BMS companies that are deeply focused on these sort of things. Everyone's very busy. Like, people are busy doing important things. I'm not saying not important things, but there isn't somebody that is got their head out of the clouds and is producing processes and controlling the processes and making sure everyone's trained on how to do these things. So if you want to have success in the BMS company, I think that this is an important thing to do, is to start operating like a franchise. Stop allowing individuals that perform well or perform poorly determine the brand of the company and the profits of the company and what the perceived, the perception is of this company in the marketplace. They shouldn't be doing that. The company should be controlling that. I'll wrap it up there. If you're into BMS stuff and you want to be a hero, look in the YouTube description below for your next step, training courses, stuff like that. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next one.